Welcome again, everyone. Bon appétit. We have today a very special and distinguished keynote speaker for lunch. My colleagues, my ICC Fraudnet colleagues might be thinking, why would you invite the Minister of Labour to ICC Fraudnet? I don't see any relationship. You're right. And I never thought of inviting him as Minister of Labour. So who is His Excellency Mr. Kamil Abu Sulaiman? He's a Lebanese child born in a village in Meten, very beautiful village. Then he becomes a school student. He goes to Jamhour school. Then he makes it to one of the best universities in the world, Harvard, just right next to Cambridge University, in the presence of Professor Ryder. And then he becomes a US lawyer and one of the most successful international lawyers in the world, I can very confidently confirm. He's advised more than 100 governments in the world on issuance of bonds, equity, debt restructuring. He specializes in corporate finance and international capital markets. I heard many people say and even write about him that he opened up the capital markets of Eastern Europe after communism, debt offerings, equity offerings, 30 years track record advising on the most complex emerging market transactions. He was recently the chair of Deckard law firm, whom we all know, based in London, when he was suddenly appointed as a minister in the Lebanese government. I have one word to say before I end my introductory note. If Lebanon can still attract back people like Kamil Abu Sulaiman, I have hope in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Nada. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Beirut. Very happy for the opportunity to speak in English. It's been a struggle speaking Arabic. Obviously, I would like to thank ICC Fraudnet and in particular my good friend and colleague Nada for choosing Beirut as this year's venue for your gathering. I think you have chosen the right partner in Beirut. I've had the opportunity to know and work with Nada. We're actually colleagues for a while, and I commend you on your choice. I am a capital markets lawyer at core, but I've had many opportunities to get involved in asset tracing and recoveries, representing financial institutions, trying to obtain redress and collect on judgments. First in Latin America, then mainly after the Russia crisis in 1998 and after the 2008 crisis. In fact, I couldn't go to Russia for about 8 years. I represented Crédit Agricole on one of the most famous litigations against the National Reserve Bank that lasted 7 or 8 years, ended up with a spectacular success. Having initially identified and frozen $500 million of bonds in the Euroclear system, which led to a change in the Euroclear procedure, and changing Belgian law to stop you basically now from attaching assets in the system. We won in about 8 jurisdictions, and then we had to settle when President Chirac and Putin agreed that enough was enough. we gave them about a 5 cents discount on the claim after 7 years, when other creditors settled for 7 cents on the claim. So I enjoyed the work. I think it's fascinating work. It's intellectually rewarding. It's also financially rewarding. So I encourage you to do that. I've discovered a few things working in your area. Number one, you need to pick the right partners, because obviously the source of information, what the investigators do, how they get the information is critical. It's becoming more and more critical. We had issues in the past where we had some suspicion about the origin of some documents in our possession. We had to go to Queen's Counsel, get opinions. That would be a much harder thing to do these days. So you need to pick your partners, you need to pick your lawyers, and there is a lot to do in this area, especially in this area of the world. I want to talk to you today a little bit more, not about your typical client, banks, financial institutions, looking to identify assets, collect on judgments, etc. I want to talk to you a little bit about Lebanon and the people of Lebanon and how you can help them. As you know, Lebanon is going through a very difficult financial, fiscal, and monetary crisis. We've had an accumulation of problems over many years, and some significant mismanagement, I would add. We end up now with a ratio of public debt to GDP of over 150%. That's the third highest in the world, but in fact it is the highest in the world, because the two countries ahead of us, Greece, issued a bond yesterday at negative interest rate, and is supported by the EU, and Japan, which has a reserve currency. So I think we can safely say we're ranked number one in terms of public debt to GDP. The ratio of debt service to revenue, budget revenue, has now exceeded 50%. So every dollar of revenue, 50 cents of which goes just to pay debt service. And this is at an average interest rate of 8%. The actual interest rate is about 13-14% at best, if you are able to access the markets. Which means if you want to market our debt portfolio, probably have about 90% of our revenues going to debt service. 3, we've been downgraded recently to CCC by at least 2 institutions, and we've been put on negative watch by 2 of them, and one of them gave us a 6-month period that I was involved in discussing the 6 months grace period, so we really don't have time to do anything. Now, clearly, no matter what the politicians say, there are difficult measures to be taken by the public, to be imposed on the public. We tried to do that a little bit last year in a very modest way, in order to avoid much more painful measures later if the situation continues to deteriorate. And I was frankly shocked by the level of stubborn and strong resistance to any increase of any kind. And I think the main reason for this is that there is no trust in the government, in the way the government is spending money. So people are not willing to make concessions or sacrifice, not even adding 1% to contribution, pension contribution, when our rate is probably the lowest in the world. And that when everybody knows that they should be paying much more, they refuse to do so because they have no trust in the workings of the government and how the money is being spent. So that's where I think you come in. I think we need to do a number of things to address this. First, we need to have the politicians who have brought us to this point stop lecturing everybody else about fighting corruption. It's not their place, it's not credible, it's not fooling everyone, it lacks any credibility. If they're all doing such a good job, our friend Nada, when she had the Transparency International, would have ranked Lebanon 138 out of 176 countries. So something must be going wrong all these years. So I think first we need to fix a little bit the legislative framework. We need to pass the law on fighting corruption in the public sector. A draft law, actually a law was passed by Parliament, the President didn't sign it, returned it to Parliament. It's now back in commission. It needs to be adopted as soon as possible. We need to establish the National Commission on Fighting Corruption but on the basis of a non-political, transparent process which should result in appointing credible, competent persons. This has not, unfortunately, been the case in other appointments except judicial appointments. Judicial appointments have been reasonably good and have brought recently some competent people. I hope they're going to move. Other appointments have been disappointing. There has been a lack of transparency, a lack of consideration of basically what people can do. So there's a way that was done under the table. The party I represent in government opposed that very strongly. I think judges and the judicial system can be the catalyst for proper fight against corruption. If you look at Italy and Brazil and other countries, you know that's where it started. You look at Georgia, for instance. It started from the judicial system and from the top. So, as I said, the latest senior judicial nominations give me some hope, because some of the judges are known for their integrity and professionalism, and we need to have the judges at the forefront of fighting corruption. We need to activate the law on access to information, which has passed, is now, they're using as an excuse the lack of implementation decrees, but the law can be implemented, they just are not doing it. And we do have a whistleblower law that has passed, but also requires the National Commission to fight corruption to be formed so that the law is effective, but that law is now on the books. And we need to actually prosecute financial crimes involving the public sector, but not on the basis of a political, partisan or sectarian basis. We can see now, I'll give you an example. There is no doubt there's been corruption in the telecommunications mobile sector, none. But the way the parliament is investigating things, they're focusing on one political party. So the idea is right, the execution is political and wrong. So we need to have people with credibility and without a political agenda trying to prosecute and investigate. That is not the case, unfortunately, right now. Prosecution is being politicized. So recent experience is not encouraging. Since the early 1990s, there have been only four ministers and members of parliament arrested or prosecuted. So given the level of corruption we have, that's clearly way out of line. We need to have many more investigations. We can have all the laws on paper. We actually need someone to take action. Here I think the central bank, the SIC, the Special Investigative Committee, whose chairman is with us here, the commercial banks and all of you can and must play a critical role in combating corruption in Lebanon. Corruption requires the use of a banking system, and the SIC has wide powers to lift bank secrecy and provide information. They can and should use their power in a broader way to investigate corruption. There's also another aspect of fighting corruption which people in Lebanon don't really, in my view, pay enough attention to. Bribery is a two-way street, and citizens also have to be held responsible for bribing or attempting to bribe public officials if we want to change the culture. The way we operate, we all complain, yeah, there is corruption, and we happily pay the bribe, so that has to stop. So what I've done yesterday is basically introduce a new form in the Ministry of Labor, an undertaking by anyone who wants to get any permission or permit, work permit or other from the Labor Ministry to undertake that he has not bribed or attempted to bribe or paid any bribe or rent for any bribe. I'm quoting the penal law, so please, next time you come, make sure you read carefully before you sign, because you may be prosecuted if you don't. We have a big task. I mean, I'm asked all the time, did I make the right decision to leave, at least for a while? My career as a lawyer, stop making money, actually spend money and come to Lebanon. I actually don't regret it at all. I think in life, especially after a while, there's a time where you have to do public service and you have to serve your country. I see a lot of potential, especially in public administration. I think, as I told Duquesne, he liked it, the French envoy for said, there is a mafia of honest people in the Lebanese administration. You just need to find them. Thank you very much. If anybody has any questions, I will be happy to take any questions you have.
Can I join them up?
Or Nada will answer the questions for me. I have done nothing yet. You know, I have a policy against gifts, which yesterday I returned. I have to tell you a short story. I have the Bangladesh ambassador brought me a gift. So I told him, you know what, I have a policy against gifts. It's for me and the ministry. And then I forgot to return the gift. And then I started looking at the thing, it was seeping. It was actually mangoes that started seeping. And then I was embarrassed to return the gift to him. So I don't know.
And you can return it. It's the Phoenician alphabet.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
a
you.
token of recognition.
Okay, I'm going to violate my own oath and keep it. You know, Ed and I work together. Yes.
When you work for 100 governments in the world, this is very difficult.